Hello, friends. Welcome to Feeling This Life. We're a family support podcast that dives deep into the triumphs, challenges, and strategies that are part of the lives of those who care for children with blindness and visual impairments. I'm Paige Maynard, and I'm an early interventionist and teacher of the visually impaired at VIPS, Visually Impaired Preschool Services.
And I'm Dr. Cathy Smith, Director of Research at Anchor Center for Blind Children in Denver, Colorado.
I'm Jenny Castanier. I am the Family Services Coordinator at VIPS, and my youngest child has a visual impairment.
So today, Feeling This Life is changing direction a bit. This is our last podcast of Season 3, and we want to share with you the serious need for teachers of children with visual impairment in our field. I am honored to interview Tammy Miller, who's the Director of Children's Programs and Services at Anchor Center for Blind Children in Denver, Colorado. I have known Tammy for many years as the TVI who showed up at her door to provide support for her and her baby who had been newly diagnosed. Let's find out more about her career path. So, Tammy, tell me a little bit about yourself and your experience as a parent of a child with visual impairment.
All right. Hello. It's good to be here. So my journey in this world began in 2004 when my second child was born, a little baby girl named Nicole. When she was about 6 weeks old, we noticed that her right eye would turn inward occasionally, but I knew from many years of babysitting, and being around babies that sometimes newborns' eyes would just sometimes cross, and it didn't necessarily mean anything. And so I just, really kind of blew it off. And at her 2-month well-child checkup, her pediatrician did that routine thing where she turned out the lights and looked into her eyes with the ophthalmoscope, and she could see that her right eye appeared something was abnormal in there. And she explained that where she should have seen like a flash of red, she saw the color white in her right eye. And she wasn't sure exactly what it was that she was seeing, but she remembered from her medical school days that this was not good. And so she knew to refer us to a pediatric ophthalmologist. And within a matter of days, my baby was diagnosed with bilateral retinoblastoma, which is cancerous tumors inside both of her eyes. So needless to say, we were just in complete shock. Our world just turned upside down. Chemotherapy, lots of emergency surgeries, traveling from Denver, where we live, to Philadelphia, to Wills Eye Hospital, to see the leading retinoblastoma specialists, and so on. It was a really, really rough couple of years for our family. And after a couple of years, things started to calm down and we felt like we had a little bit of a grip on life again. Nicole at that time had her right eye removed or enucleated, and she wore a prosthesis, and her left eye was able to be saved, but it had several small, what they call dead tumors, and lots of spots of scar tissue from past tumors. And so it kind of left her with what was described to me as a little bit of Swiss cheese vision. But thankfully, that vision around those blind spots was good. And that has made a really big difference for her, as she's always had some pretty good functional vision. It's just limited vision. So having a child with a visual impairment really entered us into a new world. It was a world of early intervention. From the very beginning, we were assigned a teacher of the visually impaired to come to our home twice a month to work with us, who Cathy mentioned.
That was me. Yep.
Yeah. So that was really my first introduction into this field of visual impairment education, was with having Cathy come in our home. And she worked with us, on lots of different things. I remember playing with toys in a new way. I remember Cathy helping me know when to step back and let Nicole be more independent. That was something that I needed to learn as a mother. I remember watching Cathy work with Nicole. She was probably over a year old at that point, and she was working with her on a shape sorter. And just the patience and gentleness that Cathy used in teaching Nicole how to manipulate those shapes in different ways and turn them just a little bit differently was really incredible to me. I will always remember that moment, just watching Cathy just know exactly what my child needed to be able to be successful at that task with the shape sorter. And I just remember just thinking how cool that was, because I, as a mother, didn't really know how to do that with her. My other child didn't need any type of support or help with learning how to do a shape sorter. He just figured it out. And so that was really, really influential to me, but I didn't yet know in what way. Anyway, then we also started attending the program, the infant and toddler program at Anchor Center for Blind Children in Denver. And we were there a few times a month. And that is where I really started to feel that feeling of hope that I knew from being at Anchor Center and working with all of the amazing professionals there, but also being with other parents who had children with visual impairments, other parents who understood my new world, really gave me that sense of hope. Like, I knew that I wasn't alone, and I loved being with the people at Anchor Center, so that I knew that Nicole was going to be okay, and that her future was very positive, and that even though this isn't the world that I thought we would be in, or the path that I thought we would be taking in our family, that it was okay. Everything was going to be okay, and not just okay, but good. So I'm just really, really thankful for those opportunities that we had when Nicole was so young. So then, through those connections, I was able to find out more about what Nicole's future would look like in a school, making really hard decisions like what is going to be the best preschool placement for my child. And so we did choose to have her start preschool at age 3 in the public school system. And from that very first week, she was assigned a teacher of the visually impaired. Her name was Melinda, and she worked with Nicole a couple times a week and worked on some different things with literacy and some pre-Braille. At that time, we weren't sure if Nicole's vision was, it was still at risk. So we weren't sure yet if she was going to end up needing to learn Braille. So thankfully, Melinda was able to spend time with her and teach her some of those, early pre-Braille basics, and then also worked with her on orientation and mobility. Having that limited vision made it so that Nicole had to learn a little bit differently than other kids how to watch out for drop-offs, like stairs or a curb, or navigating around corners, and turning your head a little bit of a different way to make sure that you can see things on that right side, even though you don't have any vision on that right side. And also some learning how to use a mobility cane, so that in especially new and unfamiliar, environments, that she was successful and able to keep herself safe. So Nicole worked with her for several years, and it was really always, I just loved talking to Melinda after Nicole's sessions with her after school. And so one day I was talking with Melinda in the parking lot of Nicole's elementary school, just about what they'd been doing that day. And I guess I had just been asking lots of questions of Melinda, and Melinda just kind of stopped me for a second. And she just I think she reached out and touched my arm, and she says, "Have you ever thought about becoming a TVI?" And I was just it just was so foreign of a thought for me, even though I had been thinking the last several months about what I wanted to be when I grew up. So here I was in my 30s, and I had an undergraduate degree, but I always had planned on going to graduate school, but I didn't yet know what I wanted to do. And I wasn't that thrilled about the path, where I had gone with my undergraduate degree. And so I just hadn't come up with an answer. And so when she asked me that, and we stood there and we talked for several minutes about the possibilities of me becoming a TVI, it truly just hit me like a bolt of lightning. I can't really explain it other than that. I haven't had very many other experiences in my life where I felt that feeling, where it was so clear to me that this is the path that I should take. And so, many more conversations and weeks and months went by, and I was able to learn about different programs and things like that. And by that following fall, I was enrolled in a graduate program to become a teacher of the visually impaired. So
yay!
I know. know, and I've been so happy ever since. I have never looked back. This is exactly what I feel that I'm meant to be doing. And, so having a child and navigating those schooling years through her as a parent, and now being, kind of on the flip side and seeing how that looks, from the education side and from a school side, has been really helpful. To be able to know both sides has been really good. And I didn't say very much yet about the supports, that Nicole needed from a TVI throughout school. So I'll visit that really quick, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I thankfully have only had to really advocate as a parent for Nicole's needs just a couple of times all throughout her schooling years. We have been so incredibly lucky to have some wonderful teachers and professionals on all of her educational teams over the years. And they have all, worked really hard to understand what supports she's needed in order to be successful in school. And now she's in college, and so many of those supports that were established in her younger years are still in place for her, which has just been wonderful and has helped her to be successful this first year that she's away in college. So, yeah, anything that I didn't...
I think you got through my first and second question, which is great. I guess now let's talk about, and we're so grateful that you have become a TVI. What are some of your favorite things about your job, and why would you recommend it to others?
Well, this one, that's a really hard yet also such an easy question to answer, because I do love being a teacher of the visually impaired, and I have now been working, full-time as a TVI for 8 years. So I feel like, my life has really come full circle in the past, 20 years or so since I was, kind of shoved into this world. I did not choose it at the beginning, but of course I have chosen this to be my career. And I have chosen to work specifically with the birth to 5 population. And there are a few reasons for that. First, because those were the years when I feel like I really needed it and benefited from the supports that our family received, just navigating what Nicole's future might look like. And second, because I really love working with parents and caregivers just as much as I love working with the little ones, working with my students. I love the conversations that I can have with the parents and caregivers, to give them that hope that they might need in that moment. That their child is going to be okay, that their child's future is going to be bright and full of opportunity, and, that their children's experiences are going to be amazing, and that their family's experiences through their child's life will be just amazing. I love being able to share that message with families. But I also just absolutely love watching and working with my students, and watching them progress. Some of our students have more than a visual impairment, right? Many of our students have multiple needs, and some, really high special support needs as far as their health goes, right? And so a lot of times we look at our students, kind of like a puzzle, where we are working with other professionals and the parents and trying to just really figure out those puzzle pieces and how they fit together. And when we finally figure that out in working with the child and learning who they are, it's such an incredible feeling to put those puzzle pieces together. And when they fit, we can see all of a sudden this child will have progress, right? And that looks different for every child in every situation, but progress is such a beautiful thing to celebrate. And I love being able to celebrate progress with my students and with their parents. I mean, that is just probably my most favorite thing about my job.
Nice. So would you recommend it to others, this job?
Absolutely. I feel like being a TVI is just so incredibly rewarding, and I have yet to meet another teacher of the visually impaired who does not feel the exact same way. It's a challenging but rewarding job, and being able to see each student as a unique person who has individual needs, and then being able to figure out what those needs are it's just like, and then watch them thrive. It's like, there's just nothing better than that. Yes, I definitely recommend this field. And there's so many different options within our field. Like I have chosen to work with, birth to 5, but I have many friends who are TVIs working in school districts, working with kids ages, birth to 21. And they find just as much fulfillment, and many of them get to stay with the same students and follow them for many, many years. And what an amazing teacher-student relationship that can develop, that amount of trust that is there between the student and family, with that teacher. And knowing that teacher of students with visual impairments has their back and is there to advocate and make sure that student has all of their needs met in every class. I think of a high schooler who has, possibly 7 classes a day, and how that's a lot of people to bring into this educational team to make sure that the student is getting the supports they need in order to be successful. And it's beautiful, it's beautiful to see all those people come together, and it's beautiful to see those students have success with those right supports in place. I mean, it's a very positive career, with lots of celebration.
So tell me about your perspective about the need for more TVIs in the field. So now you're a TVI, but you're an administrator. So what can you tell us about our need?
I've heard for several years about the deficit of teachers of the visually impaired across the U.S., but it's only honestly been in the last 2 to 3 years, I'd say, that we have really started to feel that in a much bigger way here in Colorado. So both in the birth to 3 early intervention sector and also in the public schools, there's just not enough TVIs to go around. And that means that the students and families are either not getting the full amount of supports that they may need, or it means, and this is probably more the truth, it means that those TVIs are working harder and working more hours than they're possibly being paid for in order to fulfill those needs. Now, I don't want to say that to scare anybody away, but people who become TVIs have big hearts, and they do what is necessary to meet the needs of their students. And so that just comes along with it sometimes. But more and more kids are being diagnosed with especially brain-based visual impairments. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I don't know how much we want to go into that, Cathy. But what it really means is that we have, the population of students who need vision supports has changed over the years. And there are more of those students who need supports from a TVI. And so, and we are also working really hard here in the state of Colorado to make sure that young infants and toddlers are having their visual impairments identified earlier, right? And so that means that we need TVIs. We're identifying them earlier, which is wonderful, but then that means that there's an influx of students that need these supports. And so there's definitely a deficit. The work that we're doing here at Anchor Center, we've been trying to hire a teacher of the visually impaired, a full-time teacher for a couple of years now. And we just have this constant opening, right? In order to do all of the wonderful work that we're doing here, we just need more TVIs. And I am involved in a lot of meetings that have a lot of school district personnel, and they're saying the same thing, right? That almost every school district in Colorado, especially several of them here in the Denver metro area, are down a couple of positions of TVIs. So it is really starting to impact our field. We need more people.
Yes.
And I have conversations with other parents often, and I share with them my journey and how it never occurred to me that this was something that I could also do as a parent until someone specifically placed that thought in my head. And so I now try to be that person, because in some ways I think a parent who has experienced the parent side of having and raising a child with a visual impairment has a very unique perspective, so that then when you become a teacher of the visually impaired, you just have this understanding that it's just a more of a full holistic understanding of that child and what that child's life might look like. Any parents out there who are listening, if you are interested, ask questions to the TVIs in your life.
Yep, that's exactly why we're having you on the podcast today, because you are going to be the person who specifically says to them, we need you to think about being a TVI. So thank you for your time today, Tammy, and sharing your story with us. And we are so glad you're in the field, and hopefully your story will inspire someone to become a TVI as well. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.
That was such a great episode. I really enjoyed how excited she is about about being a TVI, and her story of how she got there. Unfortunately, Cathy is not with us today, but Paige and I wanted to go ahead and get this episode out here because we were excited about everything she had to say. Paige, I know you're a TVI as well, and
I am.
Been a TVI, 10 years about?
Yeah, almost about 10 years. Yes.
Yeah, so your experience becoming a TVI was a little bit different. How did you end up being a TVI? Like, what's your story?
Yeah, so I think Tammy's story is really exciting, and mine, I guess, maybe is just exciting in a different way. So my undergraduate is in elementary education and interdisciplinary early childhood education, which also encompasses special education within early childhood. And when I was in college, I knew that I was really passionate about working with families because I had just seen, from my own experiences, that the kids who seemed to do the best and end up being the most successful were ones who had families who were highly involved. And so I was just always kind of wondering, how can I get families involved as I am being a teacher? Because I was just, I was going to go and, maybe teach second grade or something. And then as a practicum student, I was assigned VIPS as one of my placements to observe and learn more about the field. And when I got to VIPS, I was able to finally see a place that did family empowerment the right way and just inspired me, I think, so much, because I was able to see when the kids came into the preschool classroom, the parent and the teacher talked to each other on equal levels, and they both respected each other. And I could tell that the parents were very involved and that the teachers and them were working together. So I was really, really inspired. And so after I graduated with my teaching degree and with my early childhood certification, I very, very thankfully was added to the VIPS team, and it was everything that I imagined that it would be, even more. And VIPS was just such an amazing place to work and to do the thing that was in my heart. I just didn't realize that it was in vision, and I didn't realize all of the different things that it would encompass. And I loved learning about all of those things. And in addition to that, I just found visual impairment such an interesting field because it's all about making sure that our kids have access to the things in their environment. And I really liked pairing those two things together. So after I was at VIPS for about a year, I went back to school and started on my master's degree, which is a master's in special education with a focus in blindness and low vision. And then I was a TVI after I finished that program. So I've been at VIPS since the start of my career, and I've stayed at VIPS because it's a place that really aligns with what I value, and there's really just so much family empowerment that happens, and I see so many good things, and it's such a rewarding career that I really, really love it.
Yeah. Well, I know I speak for all of your families when I say I'm grateful that you chose VIPS and stayed. And I know that you make such a difference every day. And we're just so thankful that there are TVIs. And I know we're not trying to hide the fact that we need more TVIs. That, is one of the reasons we wanted to do
We
this
sure
episode.
do.
But at the same time, I don't want it to come across to families like if they don't become a TVI or someone in their family doesn't become a TVI, that they don't care about your child. That is not at all what we're trying to say here. I just think that it's important when you have a child with a visual impairment that you continue to educate yourself in whatever way that is that works for your family. So for us, my family, it is educating ourselves on what we do know about our daughter. She has several different visual impairments, and we don't know what the overarching diagnosis is. If we'll ever find out, we don't know, but we try to educate ourselves on each individual little thing about all of her visual impairments. So just constantly learning as a way to help her succeed, and be able to advocate for her as needed.
Yeah, I like that perspective that you have, Jenny, on educating yourself is self-care because it's caring for your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So how does it make you feel, or how has it made you feel in the past to have more information that you've learned about Hannah's eye conditions?
So I think for me, I'm the type of person that likes to have an overabundance of information. Like I'm very always try to be as prepared as possible for things. So even if it's something that we may not be dealing with, I may not put a lot of time into it, but if it could become a piece of it, like I like to know that it's out there, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to ask my husband, he would say completely opposite. He would probably say, I just want to know the facts that deal with her, and I don't need to know like the overarching as to why or what else could happen and things like that. I don't know if that answers this question.
Mm-hmm.
But
I like you talking about Adam's perspective on it because I know some of you who are listening may have different perspectives on the ways that you want to care for your brain and the ways that you want to learn as you go. So in your family, Jenny, what has it been like for like Adam to be learning about like whatever the next thing was with Hannah?
yeah, I think for him, like it's been a little bit of a learning curve for us because we're both so different in the way that we approach things. Like he's very rational and practical, and I'm very like emotional, like hyper organized. And I think at first we had to find that balance between him learning in his own way and me not thinking he didn't care because he wasn't being as thorough as I would like for him to be. But that didn't mean that he didn't care or that he didn't know just as much about what was going on with Hannah as I did. Like, he still knew, he was still able to, speak to what she needed, to advocate for her. We just do it in different ways, and that's a personality thing. But at first it could cause like a little bit of, wouldn't say like arguing, but sometimes I would be like, why don't you care as much as me? Or like, why aren't you as excited about learning this as me? Which that's not the case. He's just very factual based. So like, this is what Hannah needs. So here we go. It was just a difference in learning styles, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really interesting to talk about, almost like the intersection of our relationships with the ways that we learn, because there's never anything that happens in our lives that just like happens in isolation. So maybe our families listening may have like a similar experience where they're wanting to learn about their child's condition, and maybe another family member is maybe learning a different way, or maybe is more curious about one thing than another, or maybe accesses the information in a different way. So I think it's great to just own and accept that everybody that is in your child's circle is going to get information in a different way. And we're all kind of on that journey of, again, like caring for our brains. And sometimes caring for our brains means that we're going to read a whole lot of articles, or maybe it looks like we're going to take a walk and really consider some of the things that we saw our kid do today. And I think all of those things are really vital parts of our self-care whenever we are thinking about like educating ourselves. So I'm really thankful that you felt comfortable to share that you guys learn differently, and that social relationship part of it became part of your story.
And I think it's helped Hannah in a way. I mean, if it were up to me, I probably would have been too reactive to some things that she maybe didn't need, or moving too fast, as even like medically, where if it were up to Adam, he may not have moved fast enough. So we kind of balance each other out as to, when to say, hold up here, like we need to get more information, let's take our time, and when we need to just act as well. So I think that it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me a lot of our episode where we interviewed Sarah, mom to Max, where she talked about her and her husband Garrett being a team, and they both helped each other and supported each other. So it sounds like you guys are doing a great job of that. So just some other information that we want to share with you, which is if you are interested in becoming a TVI or getting yourself immersed in the vision world, please reach out to us. Our contact information is in the show notes, and we'd be happy to direct you to a program or a webinar series maybe that might help you if you're not quite ready to start a program. But this is a career where you will always be using your brain. You'll always be learning, and I think the best part is that you always will get an opportunity to have a positive impact on others in the same way or a similar way that somebody before hopefully was able to provide to you. So please reach out to us if you are interested in learning more about next steps with learning. We encourage you to always be caring for your brain, whatever that looks like for you. And we thank you for listening to this episode, and we wish you a great day, and we're thankful that you are part of our little listening family. Hey listeners, we are so incredibly grateful for your support of Feeling This Life for all of season 3. I can't believe we're at the end, but don't worry, because we are going to be ready to start up season 4 in the fall. But we need your help. We need your ideas for episodes and your thoughts about what we can do to help you to, just like our podcast says, feel this life. We want you to know that our arms are wrapped around you and that we care about your journey, and we want to see the very best for you and your little one and the rest of your team. So please let us know how we can love on you for season 4. Use the link in the show notes and let us know what you think. Thank you so much for listening to Feeling This Life. Did you know that this podcast is actually part of a research study? By filling out the survey in the show notes, you can help our community learn more about how podcasts impact those who care for children who are blind and visually impaired. So please take a look when you're able. Also, if you'd like to support us in making more episodes of Feeling This Life, look for the donation link in the show notes. The show notes also include links to resources related to today's episode and ways to get in contact with us. Please join us again next time for another episode of Feeling This Life.